Tara Williams was not your average CEO. She had risen from humble beginnings, working tirelessly to build her tech empire into one of the most innovative companies in the world. Her name was synonymous with success, and yet, despite all her accomplishments, she remained grounded and approachable. On a crisp Friday evening after closing a major deal that would expand her company globally, Tara decided to celebrate with dinner at an upscale restaurant in downtown Manhattan. It wasn't just any restaurant. It was a place known for its exquisite cuisine and luxurious ambiance. The reviews raved about it, and her colleagues often spoke highly of their experiences there. For once, Tara wanted to indulge herself instead of rushing home to work or prepare for another meeting. Dressed in a tailored navy blue dress paired with elegant heels, Tara walked into the restaurant alongside two trusted colleagues, both white, who accompanied her for the celebration. They were greeted by soft lighting, plush furnishings, and the faint hum of conversation filling the air. Everything seemed perfect. But as soon as they approached the hostess stand, something felt off. The hostess glanced up briefly before turning her attention back to her clipboard, seemingly uninterested. "Do you have a reservation?" she asked, without looking directly at them. Tara politely replied, "No, we don't have a reservation, but we'd like to see if there's availability for 3. Instead of checking her list or offering alternatives, the hostess simply said, "I'm sorry, we're fully booked tonight." Her tone was dismissive, almost robotic, as though she'd rehearsed this line countless times. Tara raised an eyebrow, glancing around the room. There were several empty tables scattered throughout the dining area, some clearly visible even from where they stood. A couple nearby had just been seated despite arriving moments ago. Confused but unwilling to make a scene, Tara pressed further. "Are you sure? We noticed there are open tables right now." This time, the hostess looked visibly annoyed. "Those tables are reserved," she snapped, her voice tinged with irritation. "If you'd like, I can add your name to the wait list." Feeling uneasy but determined to enjoy the evening, Tara agreed to be added to the wait list. As they stepped aside, she couldn't help but notice how quickly other guests were being seated. Within minutes, a group of 4 casually dressed tourists breezed past them and were promptly shown to a table near the window. Another well-dressed family arrived shortly afterward and received the same treatment. Meanwhile, Tara and her colleagues waited patiently, or rather impatiently, as the minutes ticked by. After nearly half an hour of standing awkwardly in the corner, Tara finally decided to speak up again. When she approached the hostess, she was met with thinly veiled hostility. "We've been waiting longer than others who came after us," Tara pointed out calmly. "Could you please explain why we haven't been seated yet?" The hostess avoided eye contact, mumbling something about prioritizing reservations before walking away entirely. Frustrated but composed, Tara turned to her colleagues. "Let's give it 5 more minutes," she suggested, trying to maintain her composure. Deep down, however, she couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that something wasn't right. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a server reluctantly led them to a small table tucked away in the far corner of the restaurant. It was cramped, poorly lit, and noticeably less inviting than the other tables in the room. Still, Tara chose to let it slide, focusing instead on making the best of the situation. They picked up their menus and began discussing their orders, excitedly, eager to move past the awkward start to their evening. But the ordeal was far from over. Despite multiple attempts to flag down their server, no one came to take their order. Every time Tara tried to catch someone's attention, the staff seemed conveniently preoccupied elsewhere. Meanwhile, neighboring tables were attended to promptly, with servers refilling water glasses and delivering plates of food with smiles. It was impossible not to notice the stark contrast in service. Nearly an hour passed before a frazzled-looking server finally approached their table. Without so much as a greeting, he asked, "Are you ready to order?" His tone was clipped, lacking the warmth and professionalism typically expected in such settings. Tara exchanged a glance with her colleagues but decided to proceed anyway. "Yes, thank you," she said politely. "We'll start with—" Before she could finish, the server interrupted her. Actually, he interjected curtly, the kitchen is running low on options tonight. Most items on the menu aren't available. He gestured vaguely toward the elaborate menu in front of them, which listed dozens of dishes. Skeptical, Tara glanced around the room once more. Plates of steaming pasta, juicy steaks, and colorful salads were being served to every other table. Clearly, the kitchen shortage was a fabrication. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Tara felt a mix of emotions: anger, disbelief, and sadness. She knew deep down that this wasn't just poor customer service, it was discrimination. Despite her achievements and status, she was being treated differently because of the color of her skin. Determined not to let the experience ruin her evening completely, she quietly paid for the drinks they'd ordered earlier, which miraculously managed to arrive, and left the restaurant with her head held high. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Tara's colleagues expressed their outrage. "That was unacceptable," one of them exclaimed. "You should report them." While part of her agreed, Tara stayed silent, lost in thought. This wasn't the first time she'd encountered racism, but it stung just as deeply each time. What made it worse was knowing that her presence alone had likely triggered such blatant prejudice. Yet, even in that moment of indignation, a plan began forming in her mind. If the restaurant thought they could treat her and others like her with such disdain, they were sorely mistaken. Little did they know, their actions that night would set off a chain reaction that would change everything, for better or worse. The next morning, Tara woke up with the incident still fresh in her mind. She couldn't shake off the feeling of humiliation and frustration that had settled deep within her chest. It wasn't just about being denied service or treated poorly. It was the blatant disregard for her humanity, the assumption that she didn't belong in a place simply because of the color of her skin. As someone who had worked tirelessly to break barriers and shatter stereotypes throughout her career, this experience felt like a slap in the face. But Tara wasn't one to dwell on negativity without taking action. Instead of letting the anger consume her, she channeled it into something productive. Determined to uncover the truth behind what had happened, Tara called her most trusted assistant, Mia, into her home office early that day. Mia was young, sharp, and fiercely loyal, a white woman who had been with Tara since the early days of her company. Over coffee, Tara recounted every detail of the previous night's ordeal, from the dismissive hostess to the fabricated kitchen shortages. "I need you to do something for me," Tara said firmly, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. "Go back to that restaurant today, act like a regular customer, and see how they treat you." Mia nodded without question. She understood the gravity of the situation and knew better than to argue with Tara when she was this focused. Later that afternoon, Mia arrived at the same upscale restaurant dressed casually but presentable. As soon as she stepped inside, she was greeted warmly by the hostess, the same woman who had ignored Tara the night before. "Welcome. Do you have a reservation?" the hostess asked with a polite smile. When Mia replied that she didn't, the hostess quickly scanned her list and said, "No problem at all, follow me." Within minutes, Mia was seated at a prime table near the window, surrounded by soft lighting and elegant decor. Over the course of her meal, Mia observed everything carefully. Her server approached almost immediately, offering recommendations, and refilling her water glass with a friendly demeanor. The food arrived promptly, and the staff checked on her regularly to ensure she was satisfied. Everything about the experience was seamless, professional, and welcoming, exactly the opposite of what Tara had endured. To test the waters further, Mia casually mentioned that she was considering hosting a work event at the restaurant. The manager himself came over to speak with her, showering her with compliments and assurances that they could accommodate any request she had. When Mia returned to Tara's office later that evening, she presented her findings with a mix of disbelief and outrage. "It's worse than we thought," Mia admitted, laying out photos and notes she had discreetly taken during her visit. "They treated me like royalty. I didn't even have to wait for a table, and the service was impeccable. It's clear they singled you out?" Tara listened intently, her jaw tightening as Mia recounted the stark contrast between their experiences. There was no denying it now. The restaurant's behavior was rooted in racial bias. But Tara wasn't satisfied with just anecdotal evidence. She wanted hard proof, something undeniable that would expose the systemic discrimination lurking beneath the surface. That night, she spent hours poring over online reviews and social media posts about the restaurant. What she found shocked her. Countless people of color had shared similar stories of mistreatment, being turned away despite having reservations, receiving subpar service, or being seated in undesirable areas of the dining room. Some reviewers even mentioned overhearing racist comments made by staff members. One particularly scathing post described how a black family celebrating a birthday was told their dessert order couldn't be fulfilled because the kitchen was out of ingredients, while other tables nearby enjoyed elaborate cakes. Tara also discovered news articles from years prior highlighting complaints about the restaurant's discriminatory practices. Local activists had attempted to bring attention to these issues, but nothing substantial had come of it. The establishment continued to operate unchecked, catering primarily to wealthy white clientele while alienating others. It became painfully obvious that this wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern, a toxic culture deeply ingrained in the restaurant's operations. As dawn broke the next day, Tara sat alone in her office, staring out the window as the city began to stir. Her mind raced with questions and possibilities. How could such blatant racism exist in a world that claimed to value diversity and inclusion? Why hadn't anyone held the restaurant accountable? And more importantly, what could she do to change it? For Tara, this wasn't just about seeking justice for herself. It was about dismantling the systems that allowed discrimination to thrive unchecked. She realized that her position as a powerful CEO gave her a unique opportunity to make a difference, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly because of their race. With renewed determination, Tara began digging deeper into the restaurant's background. Through her connections in the business world, she learned that the building housing the restaurant was owned by one of her real estate subsidiaries, a fact she hadn't known until now. This revelation changed everything. Not only did she have leverage over the establishment, but she also had a responsibility to address the harmful practices occurring under her watch. Armed with this knowledge, Tara started formulating a plan. She wouldn't let this injustice slide. If the restaurant refused to acknowledge its wrongdoings and implement meaningful change, she would take drastic measures to ensure accountability. By the time the sun set that evening, Tara had made up her mind. She wouldn't confront the restaurant recklessly or impulsively. Instead, she would approach the situation strategically, ensuring that her actions sent a clear message about equality and respect. The wheels were already in motion, and there was no turning back. Whatever happened next, Tara knew one thing for certain. The status quo was about to be disrupted. Tara Williams wasn't the kind of person to let injustice slide unnoticed. Her entire career had been built on breaking barriers, challenging norms, and creating opportunities where none existed before. This incident at the restaurant was no different. It demanded action, not just for her sake, but for the countless others who might have faced similar treatment. With the evidence gathered from Mia's visit and the damning online reviews, Tara knew she had to act decisively. But how far was she willing to go? That question lingered in her mind as she prepared herself for what would undoubtedly be one of the most pivotal moments of her life. The first step was gathering her legal team. Early Monday morning, Tara convened an emergency meeting with her lawyers and senior executives in a sleek conference room overlooking the city skyline. The atmosphere was tense yet focused. Everyone understood the gravity of the situation, especially when Tara laid out all the evidence they had collected. She showed them photos of Mia's seamless dining experience juxtaposed with screenshots of racist reviews and news articles about the restaurant's discriminatory practices. "This isn't just about me," Tara said firmly, her voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside her. "It's about dismantling a system that allows racism to thrive unchecked. We own the building where this restaurant operates, which means we have leverage. I want options, every possible way we can hold them accountable." Her legal team got to work immediately. They reviewed the lease agreement between the restaurant and Tara's real estate subsidiary, searching for clauses that could justify terminating the contract. Meanwhile, Tara began drafting a plan of her own. If the restaurant refused to acknowledge its wrongdoing and make meaningful changes, she decided she would take drastic measures. Firing the entire staff wasn't something she took lightly. It was extreme, yes, but it sent a powerful message. Discrimination would not be tolerated under any circumstances. Later that afternoon, Tara called another meeting, this time with her board members. She knew she needed their support if she was going to follow through with such a bold move. Walking into the boardroom, she could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her. These were people who respected her leadership but also valued profitability above all else. Convincing them wouldn't be easy, but Tara had never shied away from a challenge. She started by recounting her experience at the restaurant, making sure to emphasize the emotional toll it had taken on her. Then she presented the evidence: Mia's report, the online reviews, and even data showing how discriminatory practices hurt businesses financially in the long run. We can't afford to associate ourselves with establishments that perpetuate racism, Tara argued passionately. Not only does it tarnish our reputation, but it goes against everything we stand for as a company. Equality and respect are non-negotiable values. If we don't address this now, we're complicit. One of the board members raised a skeptical eyebrow. Firing the entire staff seems excessive, he said cautiously. Wouldn't it be better to give them a chance to correct their behavior? Another chimed in, pointing out potential backlash from the public or media if they acted too aggressively. Tara listened patiently, nodding to acknowledge their concerns. When it was her turn to respond, she leaned forward, her piercing gaze locking onto each board member in turn. I understand your hesitation, she admitted. But let me ask you this. How many chances do you think those employees have given? To people like me? To families celebrating birthdays, couples on dates, or individuals simply trying to enjoy a meal? Racism isn't a mistake, it's a choice. And if we allow it to continue unchecked, we're endorsing it. Her words struck a nerve. Slowly but surely, the room began to shift in her favor. By the end of the meeting, the board unanimously agreed to back Tara's decision. They drafted an official ultimatum to present to the restaurant's owner. Either fire the current staff and replace them with individuals committed to fostering an inclusive environment, or face eviction. There would be no room for negotiation. With the board's approval secured, Tara wasted no time putting her plan into motion. She instructed her PR team to prepare a statement outlining the steps she intended to take, ensuring transparency while protecting her company's image. At the same time, she reached out to local activists and organizations dedicated to combating racial discrimination. Their input would be invaluable in shaping the reforms needed to transform the restaurant's toxic culture. This isn't just about punishing bad behavior, Tara explained during a phone call with a prominent civil rights leader. It's about setting an example, a blueprint for how businesses should handle systemic racism. By Tuesday morning, everything was in place. Tara arrived at the restaurant unannounced, flanked by her lawyers and PR representatives. Cameras clicked furiously as reporters caught wind of the unfolding drama. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The owner, a middle-aged man named Richard, greeted her nervously, clearly aware that something big was about to happen. He tried to play it cool, offering a weak smile and extending his hand. Tara ignored it, cutting straight to the chase. I'm here because of the unacceptable treatment I received at your establishment, she began, her voice calm but authoritative. Without mincing words, she recounted her experience, presenting the evidence piece by piece. Richard stammered, attempting to apologize and deflect blame onto individual staff members. It's not my fault, he insisted. I can't control every employee's actions. But Tara wasn't buying it. You're the owner, she shot back. You set the tone for your business. If your staff feels empowered to discriminate, it's because you've allowed it to happen. Realizing he was cornered, Richard tried to negotiate. What if we offer sensitivity training or hire a diversity consultant? He suggested hopefully. Tara shook her head. That's not enough. Your entire staff needs to go. Every single person who contributed to this toxic culture must be replaced. And don't worry, we'll provide severance packages for anyone willing to cooperate with investigations into workplace misconduct. It's only fair. Richard looked defeated, knowing he had no choice but to comply. As the day wore on, announcements were made to the restaurant's employees, informing them of their termination. Some reacted with shock, others with anger, but most quietly packed up their belongings and left. For Tara, it was a bittersweet victory. Firing people was never easy, especially when livelihoods were at stake. But she reminded herself why she was doing this: to create a space where everyone, regardless of race, could feel welcome and respected. In the days that followed, Tara worked tirelessly to rebuild the restaurant from the ground up. She hired a new management team led by diverse individuals committed to inclusivity and equity. Training programs were implemented to educate staff on anti-discrimination practices, and partnerships were formed with local organizations to promote diversity within the hospitality industry. Slowly but surely, the restaurant began to transform, not just in appearance but in spirit. For Tara, this experience reinforced her belief that true leadership meant more than running a successful business. It meant standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. And though the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, she knew she had taken a crucial step toward creating a world where everyone could sit at the table and be treated with dignity. The confrontation at the restaurant was a moment that would define not only Tara Williams' legacy, but also the future of the establishment itself. It wasn't just about holding individuals accountable. It was about dismantling an entire system of prejudice and replacing it with something better, something equitable. The morning after issuing her ultimatum, Tara returned to the restaurant, this time accompanied by her lawyers, PR team, and even a few reporters she had invited to document the proceedings. She wanted transparency. She wanted the world to see what happens when discrimination is met with unwavering resolve. As she stepped inside, the air felt heavy with tension. Richard, the owner, stood near the entrance, flanked by his nervous-looking managers. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to maintain composure. Cameras flashed as journalists jostled for position, capturing every detail of the unfolding drama. Reporters whispered among themselves, speculating about how far Tara would actually go. Would she really follow through on firing the entire staff? Or would she settle for a compromise? Tara didn't waste any time. With her head held high and her voice steady, she addressed Richard directly. "You've had your chance to explain yourself," she began, her tone firm yet measured. "But excuses won't cut it anymore. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who has walked through these doors expecting fairness and respect, only to be treated like they don't belong." She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "Your staff has fostered a culture of discrimination, and I won't stand for it. Today, we're starting over, from scratch." Richard opened his mouth to protest, but Tara cut him off. "Don't bother trying to negotiate. You're operating in a building owned by my company, which gives us significant leverage. Either you comply with our demands or you'll face eviction. Those are your options." Her words left no room for ambiguity. Richard looked around helplessly, searching for support from his managers, but their expressions mirrored his own: defeat. They knew there was no winning this battle. With the decision made, Tara turned her attention to the staff. She gathered them in the dining area, standing atop a small platform so everyone could see and hear her clearly. The room fell, silent as she spoke. "I want to make one thing very clear," she said, her gaze sweeping across the sea of faces. "This isn't personal, it's systemic. Many of you may not have realized the harm caused by your actions or lack thereof, but ignorance doesn't excuse racism. If you choose to stay and cooperate with investigations into workplace misconduct, severance packages will be provided. But if you refuse, you'll leave empty-handed." Her speech sent shockwaves through the crowd. Some employees looked ashamed, others angry, and a few simply resigned. One waiter raised his hand hesitantly. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tara softened slightly, recognizing that not everyone present was guilty of malicious intent. "Now," she replied, "we rebuild. We're bringing in new leadership, a diverse team committed to creating an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued. If you believe in those values, you'll have opportunities to reapply once the transition is complete." Over the next several days, the process of dismantling the old structure began. Employees were terminated en masse, though many chose to cooperate with investigators in exchange for severance benefits. Meanwhile, Tara worked tirelessly to assemble a new management team. She sought out individuals with proven track records in promoting diversity and inclusion, prioritizing candidates from underrepresented communities. Among them was Elena Martinez, a seasoned restaurateur known for her work in mentoring minority chefs and staff. Elena became the new general manager, tasked with overseeing the transformation of the restaurant's culture. Training programs were implemented almost immediately. Led by experts in anti-discrimination and cultural sensitivity, these sessions aimed to educate both current and future employees on the importance of treating all customers and colleagues with dignity and respect. Role-playing exercises helped staff practice handling difficult situations without resorting to bias or prejudice. Posters featuring messages of inclusivity adorned the walls, serving as constant reminders of the restaurant's renewed mission. But Tara didn't stop there. She understood that real change required more than internal reforms. It needed visibility. Partnering with local organizations dedicated to fighting racial injustice, she launched a campaign called Open Doors, Open Hearts. The initiative focused on raising awareness about discrimination in the hospitality industry, while encouraging other businesses to adopt similar policies. Through social media, press releases, and community events, Tara shared stories of resilience and progress, highlighting the steps her company was taking to create a more equitable world. Public reaction was mixed, as expected. While many praised Tara for her boldness and commitment to justice, others criticized her methods, calling them excessive or overly punitive. Some argued that firing the entire staff punished innocent people alongside the guilty, while others accused her of using the incident as a publicity stunt. But Tara remained unfazed. She knew criticism came with the territory, especially when challenging deeply ingrained societal norms. What mattered most was staying true to her principles and ensuring that the restaurant emerged stronger and more inclusive than ever before. By the end of the month, the transformation was well underway. New hires filled positions across the board, from servers and bartenders to chefs and hosts. Each candidate underwent rigorous interviews designed to assess not only their skills, but also their alignment with the restaurant's core values. Diversity wasn't just a buzzword here, it was a lived reality. For the first time in years, the establishment truly reflected the vibrant tapestry of the city it served. As the grand reopening approached, anticipation grew. Locals buzzed with curiosity, eager to see whether the restaurant had genuinely changed or merely paid lip service to reform. On opening night, Tara attended personally, mingling with guests and observing the staff's interactions with patrons. Everything ran smoothly, tables were filled, laughter echoed through the room, and plates of food were delivered with genuine smiles. Most importantly, no one was turned away or treated poorly based on the color of their skin. Standing near the entrance, watching families celebrate birthdays, couples share intimate dinners, and friends toast to new beginnings, Tara felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. This wasn't just a victory for her, it was a triumph for anyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. By confronting the restaurant's toxic culture head-on, she had proven that accountability and compassion could coexist. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly bring challenges, she knew she had planted seeds of change that would continue to grow long after she was gone. Months after the dramatic overhaul of the restaurant, the transformation was undeniable. What had once been a symbol of exclusion and prejudice was now a beacon of inclusivity and progress. The reopening night had gone off without a hitch, drawing in crowds eager to experience the revamped establishment. Guests were greeted warmly, seated promptly, and served with genuine care, regardless of their race, gender, or background. For many patrons, it was their first time stepping foot inside the restaurant, while others returned cautiously, curious to see if the changes were more than skin deep. By the end of the evening, glowing reviews poured in, praising not only the food but also the atmosphere of respect and belonging that filled the space. Tara Williams watched all of this unfold with quiet satisfaction. She hadn't expected overnight perfection. Change rarely came that easily. But she could already see the seeds of her vision taking root. Under Elena Martinez's leadership, the new management team worked tirelessly to ensure that every aspect of the restaurant reflected its renewed mission. Training sessions on cultural sensitivity became a regular part of staff development, and monthly meetings were held to address any concerns or suggestions from employees. A suggestion box labeled, "Your Voice Matters" sat prominently near the entrance, inviting feedback from both staff and customers alike. It was a small gesture, but one that spoke volumes about the restaurant's commitment to listening and learning. The impact extended far beyond the walls of the establishment. Media outlets across the country picked up the story, turning what might have been a private act of accountability into a national conversation about racism in the hospitality industry. Journalists highlighted how Tara's decisive actions had forced other businesses to examine their own practices. Local news stations aired segments featuring interviews with former employees who admitted they hadn't realized the harm caused by their biases until facing consequences. Others praised Tara for using her influence to set an example, proving that true leadership meant standing up for justice, even when it was uncomfortable. Social media played a pivotal role in amplifying the message. Hashtags like "Open Doors, Open Hearts" trended nationwide, inspiring people to share their own experiences with discrimination and call out businesses that perpetuated inequality. Influencers and activists joined the movement, organizing campaigns to encourage companies to adopt anti-discrimination policies modeled after those implemented at the restaurant. Some even reached out directly to Tara, asking for advice on how to tackle similar issues within their industries. To her surprise, she found herself becoming a reluctant figurehead for the cause, a role she embraced with humility and determination. But perhaps the most profound change occurred within the community itself. Families who had avoided the restaurant for years began returning, bringing with them stories of past mistreatment and newfound hope. One elderly black couple recounted how they'd been denied service decades earlier during a rare date night. Now, seated at a cozy table near the window, they marveled at the warmth and kindness shown by the staff. "This feels different," the husband said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's like they actually see us now." Moments like these reminded Tara why she had fought so hard. It wasn't just about punishing wrongdoing. It was about restoring faith in humanity. As word spread, the restaurant attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Corporate leaders from various industries visited to observe firsthand how Tara had turned adversity into opportunity. Some sought partnerships, hoping to collaborate on initiatives promoting diversity and inclusion. Others invited her to speak at conferences, eager to learn from her experience. Initially hesitant, Tara eventually agreed, seeing it as another chance to drive meaningful change. Her speeches often began with the same refrain: "True success isn't measured by profits alone. It's measured by the lives you touch and the barriers you break." Back at her tech company, the ripple effects of her actions inspired a wave of introspection. Employees organized workshops and panel discussions to explore issues of bias and privilege within their own workplace. Managers reviewed hiring practices to ensure they were attracting diverse talent, while HR teams implemented stricter protocols for addressing complaints of discrimination. Even competitors took notice, adopting similar measures to avoid falling behind. Inadvertently, Tara had sparked a domino effect, challenging an entire industry to rethink its values. Despite the accolades and recognition, Tara remained grounded. She understood that systemic racism couldn't be eradicated overnight. It required sustained effort and vigilance. To that end, she established a foundation dedicated to combating discrimination in business and beyond. Named after her late grandmother, who had instilled in her the importance of resilience and compassion, the foundation provided grants to organizations working toward racial equity and offered scholarships to aspiring entrepreneurs from marginalized communities. It was her way of ensuring that the fight continued long after the headlines faded. Looking back, Tara knew the journey hadn't been easy. There had been sleepless nights, heated debates, and moments of doubt when she wondered if she was doing the right thing. But through it all, she had stayed true to her principles, guided by the belief that fairness and respect should never be negotiable. The restaurant incident had been a painful chapter in her life, but it had also been a catalyst for growth, for herself, her company, and countless others touched by her actions. On a crisp autumn morning nearly a year later, Tara returned to the restaurant for a special event hosted by the foundation. The theme was breaking barriers, and the guest list included activists, business leaders, and everyday heroes who had fought against injustice in their own ways. As she stood at the podium, preparing to deliver her keynote speech, she glanced around the room. Faces of all colors and backgrounds smiled back at her, united by a shared vision of a better future. "I didn't set out to become a crusader," she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I simply wanted to enjoy a meal without being treated like I didn't belong. But sometimes life pushes us to do more, to be more. And when it does, we have two choices: stay silent or speak up. I chose to speak up because silence is complicity. Today I urge each of you to do the same, to challenge the systems that hold us back and build bridges where there are divides." Her words resonated deeply, earning a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. As the applause died down, Tara stepped away from the podium, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. She had started this journey seeking justice for herself, but along the way, she had discovered something greater: the power of collective action. Change wasn't achieved by one person alone. It took courage, collaboration, and an unwavering commitment to doing what was right. And so, as the sun set over the city skyline, casting golden light through the restaurant's windows, Tara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead would undoubtedly bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But for now, she could rest assured knowing that she had made a difference, not just in the lives of those who walked through the doors of the restaurant, but in the hearts and minds of everyone who dared to believe in a fairer, more inclusive world.